Hello, and welcome to Tuesdays with Audra. I'm so glad you guys are here and are able to join us on the show today. So Tuesdays with Audra is a live stream show where we have an informal chat with individuals and business owners to get an unfiltered and unscripted look at what they're doing on the day-to-day to move themselves and their businesses forward, often in uncharted territories, considering everything that's going on. I'm your host, Audra Fournier. I'm a local business owner, publisher, certified professional life and master business coach, and lover of all things of the mind. Really, I'm just a curious person, so that's why I started this. I'm here with Chrissy Souders. She's my wonderful producer. She makes sure that we get all of your questions answered. And if it weren't for Chrissy, I really wouldn't be doing this because she invited me on one and I was like, hey, this is so awesome. So thank you, Chrissy, so much for being with us. She's going to be in the back of the scenes, making sure that, we get all your questions answered. But I'm so excited for our conversation today, and share your comments and questions so that we can get those answered. Our guest today is Amanda Wall. She is running for circuit court judge, and I'm so excited to have her on the show today. Hi, Amanda. How are you?
Hi, Audra. How are you today?
I am very good. I am very good. I'm excited for us to have all these fun discussions today.
I am too. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to all of the business owners.
You certainly hold a special place in my heart, and we'll get into why a little bit later. But really, if you could give us some background on you and kind of tell everybody who you are and why you're running for judge.
Sure. I'm Amanda Wall, and I'm running for circuit judge, which is seat 4. There are 2 races going on in our circuit. One is between Angela Dempsey and Kevin Alvarez, and the other is the seat that I'm running for. My seat is currently Judge Charlie Dodson's seat, and he is retiring at the end of this year. And so that's why I'm running for his seat. I have 31 years of legal experience in the state of Florida. And 6 of which, of those 31 years, I've spent as a magistrate hearing cases here in the Second Circuit in all 6 counties in family law matters.
So for a lot of us, we have no idea what the difference between a judge and a magistrate is. Can you explain that?
Certainly. So a judge is an elected official. You might see sometimes in the paper information about judges being appointed. What happens is if a judge resigns or retires early, their position is open before an election occurs. And so the governor appoints those positions at that time. But every judge, every 6 years for that seat, has to run for election. And so a judge is actually a constitutional officer in the state of Florida. A magistrate, like myself, is appointed by the chief judge of the circuit. So in 2014, the chief judge was Charlie Francis. And he appointed me as the administrative magistrate, which is kind of the chief magistrate that supervises the unit of hearing officers and magistrates for our whole circuit. We hear cases the same way that a circuit judge does, meaning that we run a courtroom and we preside over the matter from the beginning, usually until the end, where we write an order. But the ultimate jurisdiction for our case, of course, is always with the circuit judge.
Neat. Thank you for doing it, because I myself have even wondered. I mean, I knew that was your title, but so what brought you into law, into the position of magistrate? Where does your passion run with that?
Well, I went to law school in Chicago. I went to DePaul University. And while I was there, I worked in Cook County, which is a huge geographic area as well as population. And I worked both for the public defender's office and the state attorney's office as an intern over a 2-year period of time. And I decided I wanted to be in litigation because I love being in court every day and everything that has to do with it, the evidence practice and the procedure, dealing with people and their problems and their concerns every day. So I started off as a state attorney in Miami, Florida. I was hired by Janet Reno back in 1989, and I worked there for 5 years and moved from there to civil litigation with the Attorney General's office for a few years, representing the Department of Insurance and the Department of Corrections for the state of Florida. And then I went into private practice eventually when we moved up here 25 years ago to Tallahassee. And as part of that, it just became my passion in family law. And that's why I accepted the appointment in 2014 as a magistrate.
the state attorney's office, from everything that I know, is can be a quite challenging space to be in. So, and shout out to the City Walk family. Thank you guys for watching. I saw that comment. Thanks so much. If you have any questions, please submit them, and we'll get Amanda to answer them for you. So, if you were to pick some passion projects, I mean, okay, so my story with Amanda is that I'm a guardian ad litem volunteer, and I've had the opportunity to actually be able to testify in Amanda's court as presiding magistrate over some cases, and it was as delightful an experience as it can be when you're in that position. But you certainly have control over your courtroom, and I felt a very unbiased opinion, which is obviously important as a judge. I felt comfortable in that space, and it was, so for me, as far from coming at it from a guardian ad litem and a family of family law attorneys, it really is a special environment to have to be in when it comes to family law. Give your thoughts on the whole thing.
I'm so glad that you felt that way, because it's one of the things that I strive for, and I find to be one of my most important duties, is to make it so that the courtroom and the courthouse is a welcoming and respectful environment for everyone. And that includes not just the litigants, but the attorneys, the witnesses, and the experts who come in, the volunteers like guardian ad litems, even the observers. It should be a place where people feel respected and they don't feel in any way compromised or any biases by anyone in that court system. And so that it's a place where people feel they can come and be heard and feel they've been heard fairly. So I appreciate that comment very much.
Not a problem. Do you do much work with the guardian ad litem?
Yes, I do. In having the courtroom for 6 years in civil family law, there are many areas of family law. One is civil family, which is divorces and paternity cases and temporary custodies and step-parent adoptions. There's also dependency court and domestic violence and delinquency that are all part of kind of the family group. And as a circuit judge, I would have jurisdiction over all of those. As a magistrate, I was in civil family. Civil family had no funding of any sort, the way dependency court might, for programs or for people to be guardians ad litem paid through the system, or attorneys ad litem for the litigants or for the children that were involved in the family law cases. And so what I did in seeing that need and wanting to appoint more guardian ad litem for free for these families that really needed it, we started a program to kind of recruit more attorneys who normally don't practice family law, but they were willing to become guardians ad litem. They just needed some training. So we put together a program with some judges from down in South Florida to come up, and mental health consultants as well, to come up and teach a course for a full day so that we could get a whole bunch of people signed up as volunteer guardian ad litems who had been trained and who would feel comfortable going out and volunteering for our courtroom.
And I should have said this in the beginning, but for those of you that aren't familiar with guardian ad litems, as a guardian ad litem volunteer, volunteers generally work within the dependency court, and sometimes with the civil section. We go in a situation where potentially a child has been removed from a parent or things like that. Our purpose as guardian ad litems is to develop a relationship with the child and make sure that they're getting all the services that they need, and they're have anything from shoes to after school activities to normalcy activities, which is where they just live like other kids, are able to participate in sports and things like that. So we just make sure that through the process the child has the attention that they need. And so in court situations, sometimes it's very important. If you're ever interested in guardian ad litem, please look them up. They're an amazing organization.
And you can volunteer if you're not an attorney. So it's a little different. If you're not an attorney, you can volunteer. You just have to go through the statewide program, which is actually a course. I don't think it costs anything, but you have to sign up for it through the statewide guardian ad litem program. Now, most of those people who go through that program will be giving their time to dependency cases, because that's why it was set up. It's funded through state funds, and It's a whole program that helps the dependency court. Attorneys can become guardian ad litems by the statute, just, by simply volunteering. And what we set up in our circuit was sort of a training just so that attorneys would know what we're looking for and how to write a report and, what was appropriate and how they could interview witnesses and the children in the case. So there's two ways to volunteer as a guardian, as both an attorney, but also as a non-attorney. And we need volunteers. We really do.
Yeah. Non-attorney.
Yeah.
So, how's your campaign going, and how is it probably quite a bit different than every other previous campaign, since we have all of the social distancing and all of that going on? How's that working out?
So it is. COVID-19, affected everything. And of course, I filed for this seat February 1st of this year, a few months back, and COVID hit about 6 weeks later. So I never have run for office before. So I have been truly learning not just how to run a campaign, but how to run a campaign during COVID. So we do a lot of things like this, video conferencing and Zoom meet and greets and evening time meet and greets with friends and groups of people so that they can just have the opportunity, and so that I have the opportunity to really introduce myself to people. And of course, we have a lot of forums that are occurring. In fact, this Thursday at 11 o'clock on WFSU, there'll be a Perspectives Forum with Tom Flanagan with the candidates for my seat and myself. And we've had some through the Florida bar by, there is a publication out there that gives all of the information, biographical and experience of the candidates, as well as the Tallahassee Bar Association as well did a forum, and that's out there too with a link that you can watch.
And you've also been traveling around a little bit, trying to reach all the communities. How's that been going?
Well, our circuit is one of the largest in the state of Florida as far as geographically,
right.
Because we include all the way from Bristol and Liberty County up to, Gadsden and over to Monticello in Jefferson and down to Franklin and Apalachicola. So it's in 𝐂𝐭 County. So it's a very large geographic area. I've gone to every county as much as possible during COVID in the safest way. And the really only way to do that is by volunteering, which I have been doing for months now for food distribution. So I work with Second Harvest and with local churches in communities in all 6 counties to help with food distribution. And that's been a great opportunity. It's not a large amount of people you meet, but you certainly get to volunteer, which is wonderful and feels good, and you get to meet people.
Yeah, that is wonderful. I've been Facebook stalking you and seeing you all over the place with Second Harvest and doing your distributions. What a wonderful way to connect with the community and, really just to get to know who your constituents are.
I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
I really do enjoy it. I had an opportunity out in Liberty. This is just an example. I was volunteering. It was Second Harvest distributing the food, but it was through a local group that was faith-based that had mothers who had lost their children in dependency cases. And they were getting their lives back on track, whether it was from drug addiction or whatever it might be. And it was really a privilege to meet that group of women who were also volunteering in the food distribution. And it was a great way to hear what the issues are in their community. So,
what are some of the issues that you hold close to your heart, and maybe some of the reasons that you wanted to run for judge in the first place?
So I have to say, when I was a prosecutor back in Miami, I always thought about running or becoming a judge, just because, as I said, I feel so comfortable and I really feel I can contribute in the law in the courtroom. It's a place that I feel very comfortable and I feel I do well in. So as a state attorney, I always thought about it. But then, I've had 4 children and raised them here in Tallahassee with my husband, and life kind of takes precedence. And so that was kind of the thing that was happening for many years, along with me continuing to practice law. And now when I went back to working full time after my kids were farther along in school as a litigator in private practice for family law, I really just found an area of the law that I felt the most gratified in contributing to. Working with families and children and, trying to resolve matters so that it is in the best interest of those children is a fulfillment that I never had before in any of my other practice.
And I also feel like often family law isn't, it's not hot, it's not cool, it's not, and so it doesn't get as much exposure, I think, as it should. And watching my mom work through family law for the last 40 years, it's certainly been a passion project of hers. And so you don't get to see, or you don't see often, campaigns centered around family law. But I think it's such a foundational need to help families. Is that kind of how you feel about it too?
I agree. And it should be a very large focus of what we talk about. We concentrate a lot on criminal law experience that a judge might have, because most people hear about criminal cases in the news all the time. Mm-hmm. And civil, of course, is everything else that we do, in our lives, whether it's in your businesses, probate, in your personal lives. It touches everything. But family law is 40% of what comes in the courthouse every single day in our circuit. So of the cases that come in, 40% are family law related. 60% is everything else, is the criminal and the civil other matters. Mm-hmm. Family law touches, what I have found in my life is that there isn't really anyone I know who doesn't have someone in their life, a friend, a family member, or themselves, or their children, who have been touched in some way by a family law case. And so it really does matter. It's a very important area. It shouldn't be thought of as the place where, judges don't want to go to. It should be the most prominent because it's dealing with our most important issues, our children, the families, and, the financial homes and the support that allows families and children to thrive. So it really does touch the most important things in our lives.
Yes, I completely agree. I mean, it's the pre-criminal. It's when they're children, this is their experiences and this is what happens to them. And those things roll into the psychological impact later in life.
That's a great point. That's exactly right. There is training that judges receive now on trauma and how trauma affects children and young families and how it affects the trajectory, really, of how people end up going through the court system. Because many cases, you have children who are in high conflict, situations, whether it be just because of drugs or because of mental health issues or because the people around them are just so high conflict. And those children end up in the dependency system, then eventually end up in the delinquency system, and then to the criminal system. And this is the trajectory that, FSU has a whole social work department that works on this regularly. I know in my courtroom, I adopted many of their, sort of videos that would help to model good behavior for people because of the fact that I find that to be such an important point, that if you can change how a child is experiencing their younger years of life, you can really affect the trajectory of their life.
Kudos to you. I appreciate your passion for the subject. Absolutely, for sure. Are there anything that you would like for your constituents to know about you or about your campaign? I have more questions, but I probably don't have them all. So is there anything that you would like us to know when it comes to us choosing our seats?
Yeah, I think it's really important, just what we were talking about, who your judges are. A lot of people, a lot of attorneys even, don't pay as much attention to the judicial races as they do to the races for representatives for the House or senators or local commissioners. And those are the people who make the laws, of course. The governor, who is the executive branch. But for the judicial branch, it really is important who the judges are. And judges are either elected or they are appointed. And, making sure the backgrounds, the experience, the focus of what those people who are candidates have been doing with their careers is important for people to learn about. And I know it's not easy to find the information on judicial races. There are ways, like we were just saying, through the Tallahassee bar, through the Florida bar, but for the average person out there, they don't know where to find that type of information. So it's really important to get that. I think that my campaign is that experience matters. And I can proudly say solid experience in criminal litigation, in civil litigation, and also in family law. And those are all of the areas that are the jurisdiction of a circuit judge. So I think that that's important. But in addition, I think it's also important that as a judge and as a lawyer, I have always volunteered in this community. As a lawyer, I volunteered for legal aid, representing people pro bono. I myself volunteered as a guardian ad litem when I was an attorney. When I became a magistrate, I couldn't volunteer in those capacities anymore, so I volunteered on committees statewide. I was appointed by the Supreme Court of Florida to a standing committee statewide on children and family in the courts and other types of organizations that deal with those issues as a board member. So I think that those types of things are really important when you're considering who is going to be the person making decisions about people's lives every day.
I completely agree. And after 25 years, I will happily adopt you as a Tallahassean. Absolutely.
I've lived here longer than anywhere else in my life. So
there you go.
It is my hometown now.
And you raised your children here. So I'm going to say
it's definitely their hometown. And three of them have gone to FSU. Two have already graduated FSU. One is there now. So I think I'm a rightful hometown person now.
If you had to say what has helped you get where you are, and what advice would you give to others that wanted to set off in a similar direction?
So, always, of course, having a lot of perseverance, but I have to say, it really was a lot of the women in my life who gave me a hand up that was a huge part of how I can say that I've gotten to where I am. When I started, it was, Janet Reno who gave me my first job, and she was the real deal in every aspect, teaching. The most important lesson she ever taught was that you never have an appearance of impropriety in what you do. And that was something that you didn't take lightly, because if she ever thought you did, you'd be in a lot of trouble. So, and then, throughout my career, it always just ended up that women who were in positions of power always gave me a hand up. When I was raising, my children, I had 3 children in 6 years. So each of them was under, 2 years that I kind of had kids. And I went to work part-time for the Florida bar up here in Tallahassee, and I got, a job as a branch counsel. And the head of that unit was a woman who gave me the opportunity to be flexible with my schedule so that I could get back into practicing law the way I truly had a passion for, but still able to, have the daily life of a mom that had 3 kids that, all were about 2 years apart.
Right.
Later, when I wanted to go into private practice and family law, and as a mediator as well, I was just shadowing someone here in town who gave me the opportunity to work with her for the first time in private practice and family law. And again, she just gave me a hand up and the ability to learn from her. And so I credit those people, not, really famous people or not any other type of idea, but really the people who helped me along the way. And I try to pay that back and help other women along the way as well.
That's awesome. How can people get involved in your campaign or follow you or, spread the word or find you or find more information about you?
So I have a website, amandawallforjudge.com. Very easy to get to and find. And on that page, it has all the information about my background, my experience, and also a little bit about my family background, and then a page for volunteering. You can always contact me directly at wall4judge@gmail.com. And that's wall and the number 4 judge. And that's how it is. Wall 4 number, which is the number 4 judge @gmail.com. My website and all of my other materials has my phone number as well, which is local Tallahassee 570-2863. And I'm on Facebook as well at Amanda Wall for Judge.
And please do catch up and follow her on Facebook because she's everywhere. And she's most likely, I see her doing volunteer work with Second Harvest or out into the communities. Ashley Guy says, my husband and I voted for you, Amanda, by mail-in.
Oh, thank you, Ashley. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
That's so awesome. I love it.
Oh, Brandon Chasen. And Brandon, how are you, dear? Charlotte says hello. She's just about 10 feet away from me.
Go, Amanda. Yes, absolutely. Is there anything else that you would like us to know or any more information that you would like to share with anybody who's watching?
Sure.
Mom, you rock.
Mom, you rock. Awesome. So yeah, during the COVID crisis, it really has changed our court system. I think that's an important thing to consider as well for voting, because our, jury, I'm sure everyone has read in the news or somehow heard, jury trials have stopped because of the fact that there's no way to bring jurors in safely. And so criminal trials, for instance, are backed up since March. So just imagine that all of those cases that come in daily and that we're waiting for their trials already are completely backed up for, 10 months. It probably won't be until the beginning of the year. There are civil cases as well that are waiting to be heard that need juries. Family law cases don't have juries. Those are being heard by video conference like this. And an important point is that, I was a magistrate up until I had to resign the end of April, because that's when I, qualified to become judge, and it's mandated that I do that. But for the first 2 months there, my courtroom was one of the first courtrooms that started video conference hearings. And the process and procedure for doing that was, a lot of it was kind of tested out in my courtroom so that we'd be able to get people access to justice system, even though, this horrible crisis had hit. I know we've come out of that a little bit in the court system, trying to have, sort of the same thing with stages of opening up the courthouse. But in a lot of places I read today, like the 18th Circuit, they've gone back to closing the courthouses again, which means that everything is backed up. So we're really going to need people who have experience and the ability to handle a courtroom and handle it during COVID for this seat and for any other seat come January of 2021.
And efficiently as well, to be able to get through all of the, backlog.
Thank you from Thompson and Crawford.
Thompson Crawford Smiley recommended you. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Great thing, just quickly to mention is developing the relationships with the other attorneys and firms in the community is very impactful to the efficient run of a courtroom. So that's good to hear.
That's true. That's very true. Having, open forums where everyone, not having anything where there's a, just a special relationship between one firm and the judge, but always having an open discussion and relationship with all of the groups. There's a great group in town that is all family law attorneys, and that group meeting with, the judges and being able to discuss issues that are for the betterment of the court system are very important.
I agree with that. I've certainly learned that along the way. Well, it has been an absolute delight to have you on. I have one last question, and I hope that it doesn't come off as biased, but what is your fondest memory of Tallahassee?
My fondest memory of Tallahassee, I think, is, this is a very personal thing, is that I'm a very outdoors person. And so I love to be out in the woods or on a river somewhere. I've always been active in riding horses and in kayaking, and those are my two favorite things to do. So I just love the fact that you can go out on any weekend anywhere here and do something outdoors and really be in wilderness and enjoy it. And it's just beautiful. So
I do too. It's like a hidden little gem surrounded by just nature. So it's wonderful. It has been such a delight to have you on the show. Thank you so much for sharing your point of view and your campaign and your thoughts and your passions with us. It's just been delightful to have you and see you again.
Thank you, Audra. It was a pleasure, and I really am so grateful, so thankful that you gave me the opportunity to speak to everyone today.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you to Chrissy, as always, for being our wonderful back of the house producer and making sure that we got your questions answered. So make sure that you like our Facebook page and like Amanda's Facebook page and follow her on her adventure through her campaign and other social platforms. If you have any coaching questions, please message or email us. If you'd like to nominate yourself or another individual or a business owner, please feel free to contact us. That's this week's episode of Tuesdays with Audra. So don't forget to join us next week, same time, same place, and we'll bring another professional to the table to have these great discussions. Thank you for listening. And until then, keep learning and keep leading. Have a wonderful Tuesday. Stay dry.